On today's Hibulb Conversations, James Madison, Tulalip tribal member, master carver, and contemporary artist in glass, bronze, and stainless steel. James talks about his early indoctrination into art and his life as an artist and how his pieces are designed to keep his culture alive. Hi, welcome to Hibulb Conversations. I'm Mytyl Hernandez, and today we're here with James Madison. Welcome, James.
Hi.
How you doing?
Doing great.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
It is. Let's get to know you a little bit. Tell me about your early life. Tell me about your childhood, your parents, grandparents.
My grandpa is Frank Madison. My grandma's Lois Madison. My dad is Richard Madison. My mom is Alma Madison. I have a sister named Gina Harrison. My other sister would be Jody Dumont, and my oldest son is Jaden Madison, and my youngest son is Jevin Madison. I grew up at my grandpa's house. I started learning how to carve at 5 years old. I made my first carving when I was probably about 8 years old. I used to get dropped off for school at my grandpa's house over in Everett, and I went to Whittier Elementary, and so I would basically get culture and teaching in the morning, and then after school I'd get culture and teaching after school. And that's when my grandpa was carving around the kitchen table, and he would sit me down. I was probably one of the youngest cousins at the house. My cousin Stephen Madison lived there, and so him and I would kind of be watching my grandpa carve, and then my dad would show up to pick me up, and he would, carve as well. And that's kind of where my teachings happened.
And was this just carving for enjoyment? Were they working on any projects?
From what I remember when I was little, my dad was working on a project. My grandpa, he was always working on projects, so that's basically how he, made money that I remember. Mm-hmm. And so he was always carving on totem poles, and he was always refurbishing or taking care of William Sheldon's big totem pole over in Everett. Mm-hmm. And he would bring me and my cousin Stephen along and help us, or we would help him paint, at the very bottom. Mm-hmm. I have memories of him being at the very top of that pole, and I remember looking straight up at him and him looking straight down on me.
70 feet tall, like on a lift?
Yeah, I don't even remember what he was on, but he was putting copper on the top.
Wow.
To protect the pole from rotting up there.
So you went to elementary school at Whittier, mm-hmm. and then where did you go? What's your education journey?
I went to North Middle, and then I went to Everett High.
What did you do in high school? Did you play any sports?
Yes, I played football, I played basketball, I ran track, but football was my main sport, and I was very obsessed with it.
Were you?
Yeah.
What position did you play?
I played running back, played corner, played safety, kind of played all over the place.
All 4 years of high school?
I actually played 3 years. My sophomore year I didn't play. I was going through some stuff, home life. Mom and dads weren't getting along very well, and it was really hard on me, so I didn't even play any sports that year. And I regretted it.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you had your junior and senior year.
I did, and once I got back on that field, I made sure that everybody knew who I was and remembered who I was.
Yeah.
So.
What did you do after high school?
Well, I wanted to go play football, and I didn't listen to everybody that said get good grades. So, I had decent grades. I just didn't try a lot, and because it was too easy. And and that kind of bit me in the butt at the end when I was a senior in high school. So I was able to go to junior college to play football, and so that was my avenue because I wanted to keep playing football. My dream was to play in the NFL, and I took a trip down there and found a school that I liked. There's two. One was in Huntington Beach, and the other one was at Shasta Community College. And they're two junior colleges. And I went to junior college, and it pretty much affected my life forever. I was told I had a dorm and a place to live, and I already had my own house full of stuff.
Yeah.
And I brought it all down there to live. And the coach there wasn't available and pretty much lied to me about everything. And so I had to make a big choice in my life and to leave. And at the time, I didn't know that that would affect my life forever. And I didn't realize that I would never play the sport ever again in my life. And
you were 18?
I was 18 years old. Until this day, that drives me to everything that I do. So
you came home from California, so
Yep.
that didn't work out. And then what did you do?
Well, I've always been a person that has goals. I've always set high goals, medium goals, and small goals. And basically it was time to move on, and what was the next best thing I was great at, or better at. And for me, it was always my art. I always had that, my culture in my back pocket, and I always, dreamt of being, an artist like Bill Reed up in Canada. He's Haida. And so he was my mentor, even though I never met him.
Yeah.
But he was always in all the books, and he had the big giant sculptures that were like 15 to 20 feet. And as a young boy, when I was 5 and 8, those are the books that were accessible to me, and I was able to look at those constantly and study and just visualize what I would do. And I always wanted to make things larger than life, because I would take trips up to Canada. My dad would bring me up there and go to the BC museums and Stanley Park and the aquarium, and I would see Bill Reed's giant sculptures, and I would look at all the people and how it affected them and how excited they were and how it, drew their attention. And so I knew that that's what I wanted to do in life. So I went to Everett Community College because I knew I needed a college education. But my goal was to graduate from the UW because I bleed purple and gold. And but I had an opportunity to go to Hawaii, San Diego State, or UW, and I got accepted to all three. And I was at ECC for like a year and a half, and I had to get out. I had to get out of this town. I had to leave. I had to go experience new things. And so I asked my counselor and my art teacher, like, where should I go for the best art career? And those are the three that he brought up to me. So if I went to Hawaii or San Diego State, I would have been renting jet skis for a living.
Yeah.
Probably would have been happy that way too, but I think that I made the right choices at the end of the day, and very grateful.
Yeah. And you graduated from University of Washington when?
I graduated in 2000.
And what was your area of study?
I was going to go into graphic arts, but the school told me that I couldn't take any other art classes because it's very competitive. And so I took general studies, which I was able to take all the different mediums that I do now. So that's where I focused. And basically sculpture, I did basically a minor in sculpture and bronze casting, and then I did basically a minor in museum studies.
Well, thank you so much for telling us about your early life. I've really enjoyed hearing the stories of what shaped you to be you. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back with more Hibulb Conversations. Welcome back to Hibulb Conversations. Today we're here with James Madison. So tell me about you going out on your own as an artist.
So I graduated in 2000. I was making several bronzes and carvings and prints, and I got all this artwork together about the same time that I graduated. And I made a bunch of slides, because at that time everything was based off of slides. And I was told that's the way that you do things. So I made all these slides, paid someone to take pictures of all my artwork, and ran to all the galleries in Seattle. And so I brought my artwork in, I brought my slides, put it on the desk, and started to tell them who I was, where I come from, what tribe I'm from, where my family's from. And they all reacted pretty similarly the same and said, basically, who are you? Where'd you come from? And because the artwork that I had, was pretty elaborate at the time, and I was at the UW, I had all these different mediums that, we were learning, they were teaching us. And so I was making things out of bronze. I had this big giant mask, bronze cast, and a big old Zuniquat mask. And, they're pretty excited to have me in their gallery. Two of them were real coy about it, and they didn't kind of show their cards. And then one of them just they just basically just kind of just sat there and read me, and then I just grabbed my stuff and I was ready to leave, and they're like, wait, where are you going? And they said, no, we want all your stuff. And so that's basically how everything started for me. I've been very fortunate, and it's been a blessing. And for me, keeping my culture alive is very important, doing my part, and just the history that I've been given, and the culture that I live with and I'm part of is very important to me. And I just I feel grateful that I'm able to do it at the level that I'm doing it.
Yeah. Well, and what an opportunity to be right out of college and having your work displayed in galleries in Seattle. It's such a competitive market.
Yes.
You talked a little bit about Bill Reed, not knowing him, but him being like your mentor from afar. Can you tell us about some of your mentors?
As far as art goes, Bill Reed, Robert Davison, Susan Point, those are all the main people in the books. Bill Reed, never met him, but in all these books, these Native American, Northwest Coast Native art books, he's been, the person that I seek to go beyond.
So out of college, you went and displayed your work in Seattle in galleries, and then what did you do? At some point, you had come back to Tulalip to work?
Yeah, before I came to Tulalip to work, I was doing sculptures. They were getting bigger and bigger. I had a few opportunities to produce metal fabrication pieces in Everett, and I also got on to the Arts Council and the Arts Commission in Everett and Snohomish County. I met a lot of great people, and I just basically just worked as hard as I could and learned the process of being a professional artist. Had a lot of help along the way. People showing me, from their experiences, like other fellow artists. And I just pushed as hard as I could to get to where I am now. And so going into Tulalip, the opportunity presented itself to go in a different direction. And for me, honestly, I just kicked the door open. So once a door opens, I don't walk through, I kick it through, because that's what I know. I'm very competitive. And so for me, working with the tribe, I, was given an opportunity of a lifetime.
And what kind of projects did you work on? Tell me about a few of them. We have several things that you've done here at the Hibulb Cultural Center, but throughout the reservation. Tell us about some of your projects.
Well, so at Hibulb, I created a grandma pole, and it was very important for me. There was an opportunity that was given to my Uncle Joe Gobin and myself to carve these welcome figures for Hibulb. And, my uncle is the elder, so he gets first pick, and he should. And so he got to carve the man, and I was like excited because I knew what he was going to choose that. Yeah. And I wanted to carve something that was different. Yep. And for me to do that, I get to carve a woman, and it was an elder. I wanted it to be an elder and pay respects to my elders because that's the way I was taught. And so I was excited to create that. That carving is one of my favorite things that I've made.
Kaya.
Yeah, Kaya. And, I put my heart and soul into it. And for me, I don't look at myself as a native artist. I look at myself as an artist. And so for me, I sculpt. I don't carve, I sculpt. And I know that sounds goofy, but it's just my, it's just the way that I want to take our art. My grandpa always told me that we need to not carve things that are out of the books. We need to create new things to show that we're still evolving. We're not petrified, we're still alive. That was his little slogan. And, for me, I take that every day of my life on when I'm doing something, I'm trying to create something new and show that we're not petrified. We're still alive, we're still creating, we're still developing. So I do things in different mediums, like glass, for instance, and bronze casting. And even though glass and bronze are one of the oldest mediums, today it's looked as upon, something modern and new.
And do you consider your pieces more like storytelling through art?
Yeah, so everything that I do is based off of story. And so, being at my grandpa's house when I was young, that's all he did was tell me stories over and over every day. Yeah. And in the morning and after school. And I had to repeat them stories to him eventually when I got, older and was able to remember everything he was telling me. And it was just like Groundhog's Day. It was just the same stories over and over and over, and where I remembered. And, it was a big deal for him because, I was, his little pupil, and, he just was teaching me everything, me and Stephen.
Can you give me an example of a piece that you've done, maybe even here within the Hibulb Cultural Center, that incorporates a story into the design?
Yeah, so I got the opportunity of a lifetime from the board of Tulalip, and I was able to create these bronze whale fins, and and they're all different sizes. There's one that's 7 feet, one that's 9 feet, and there's one that's 13 and a half feet that still needs to be finished. And the process is you carve something, then you make a mold of it, and then you cast out a bronze. Well, when I made the wood versions, I was going to throw them away. And people like yourself,
The nerve, yeah, the audacity,
told me, no freaking way, we need to keep those. And so I, after we got the mold, the wood I had to clean up. And so I had the shop, we were all cleaning this thing up and trying to make it look presentable. If I would have known we were keeping it, I would have used like better cedar and, better parts of the tree. But these were all remnant pieces off of totem poles that we all carved out of the carving shed. And so, anyways, I created this 9-foot or 7-foot whale fin, and I based it off a story, and it's a story about being boastful, and it's got 5 wolves on it. And there's a canoe on it and a loon and a deer. And basically a short version of that is, there's a deer and a loon and they're
traveling
friends.
together.
They're traveling in a canoe. And the deer is basically telling the loon that he's not scared of anything, As he's telling this loon all these boastful things about himself and what he can do. The fog starts to roll in, and when the fog rolls in, you can't really see where you're going, and so all of a sudden they start hearing these drums, and it's starting getting louder and louder and louder, and the deer starts shaking, and the loon is kind of freaking out and like, let's jump in the water. Just trust me, just jump in the water. And the deer is like, no, just get on my back. I can jump over those mountains. And the drumming is getting louder and louder and louder. And eventually, they feel this big bump on their canoe. And it's 5 wolves. And these 5 wolves, they reach in and they grab that deer. And that deer tries to jump in the water, but it doesn't make it.
Yeah.
And the loon jumps in the water, dives down, and disappears. And the deer's,
The meal for the wolves.
he gets devoured. And, at the end of the day, it's a story about being boastful. And those were our teachings growing up. And I thought that was great for kids, to have that version of a story of teaching somebody to not be boastful.
Yeah.
And so I created it in a piece of art, and those are the kind of stories that I create in all the pieces that I do.
Yeah. Well, you tell the story way better than I do.
Short version, yes.
Thank you so much for taking us through a walk of your art and your journey as an artist. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be back with more Hibulb Conversations. Welcome back to Hibulb Conversations. Today we're here with James Madison. Welcome back, James.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for telling us about your early life, about going to school, graduating from University of Washington, your early parts of your career, entering the galleries. What are some of your hobbies? What are other ways that you are continuously teaching, not just art, but mentoring yourself?
Well, I am a coach, and I coach football, and I also coach basketball and track. I started coaching my 2 sons and a lot of cousins out here on the res at the Boys and Girls Club at Tulalip. And I started with flag football and had a blast. We were very successful at every level that we've played at. Coached youth football and won a couple championships. Went undefeated for like 3 years.
Yeah.
Got to bring a team from Tulalip to Ohio in the Hall of Fame game and Hall of Fame tournament, I should say. and we won one game and lost one game.
Yeah.
We lost to some big old boys in Georgia.
Yeah.
But we held our own,
Yeah.
and we were actually winning at halftime. So, and that was probably the pinnacle, the highest point of my coaching career. Taking those boys to Ohio and showing just our Tulalip kids and like how talented we are and how important it is to give them these opportunities, this positivity.
Yeah.
And I was part of that, and that meant a lot to me. And then I get to share that with my two boys. Greatest time of my life.
It is so important as an artist working in other communities to be able to come back and work in your own community. We know that in Tulalip, the presence of aunties and uncles, whether by blood or fate, we know the impact that it has in their lives. And I know that it's had a huge impact in your life too, being able to work with those kids and give them football teachings. And then I'm sure you put some traditional teachings in there as well, how you hold yourself in a community. And
for me, you know, we all are teachers in some capacity, you know, and I just think it's important for kids, you know, especially when they ain't got moms or dads, or, you know, they live with grandmas or grandpas or aunties or uncles. You know, it takes a village to raise kids.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
You know, and you know, and for me, you know, to be able to teach them life lessons. You know, I coach at Archbishop Murphy. That's where my kids go to school at, you know, varsity level of football. And, you know, it's still teaching. It's still, you know, life lessons. And for me, football isn't the sport. It's actual life lessons.
Yep.
And it, you know, there's a grind there. And when you go to work and you get a job, I mean, it's so important to understand, like, how a sport can give you that strength and the balance that you need to succeed in life. So there's a transition there, and, you know, as a coach, you know, you're trying your hardest to get kids to believe in themselves and accomplish things that, you know, they might not know that's inside them, you know. Maybe life gets in the way and they're down and you need to pick them up, and, you know, and I personally, you know, get a lot out of that. But for me, I want to tell all the kids that I coach that they saved my life personally. Right. Personally, they saved my life. And I have a gratitude to them, and I am grateful and thankful for them for allowing me to coach them. And, you know, it's important for me to say that, you know, because, you know, they taught me a lot about myself. And so, so if you're asking me about teaching, you know, you also can learn from younger people as well.
You should.
Yeah.
They're evolving too. So you've been in this art industry now for probably close to 3 decades. Tell me about how it's changed over the last 20, 30 years, the resurgence of Coast Salish art, what you're seeing more now than you did when you were first starting at the University of Washington.
Well, for me, and this is the way that I think, I have a big portfolio, is what I'm always told. But for me, I just started.
Yeah.
I haven't even gotten to things that I've been thinking about for years.
Got a lot of time left.
Well, time is short, and, you know, you only live once. And so for me, I think, you know, Coast Salish artwork has evolved, and it's actually been broadcast and seen at a different level. You know, growing up, you've seen a lot of artwork up in Alaska, you know, in all the books. You didn't see Coast Salish artwork very often, you know, and I also have Tlingit blood as well. And so growing up, I did Tlingit artwork. That was my thing. Pretty much everybody did, because that's what was in the books.
That was what was available.
Yeah, and then Susan Point, you know, she started like being published, and, you know, her artwork was in a book. It was available for us to look at and just kind of and be proud of our own artwork. And so for me, you know, coming back to working for the tribe, I was able to be a part of keeping our culture alive. And, you know, so I was able to create artwork that, you know, that we are proud of. I hope I did my job for all our people on Tulalip and in Coast Salish territory, you know. You know, for me, you know, when I grew up, there was a few polls that were done, you know, by the elders at Tulalip, and and you know, I was proud to see those, you know. You know, there was not very many, but they're, you know, and then growing up, my grandpa always told me about, you know, the arch that was out here. There was two of them. There's one on the end of the res and one on the beginning of the res. And he always wanted to redo those and put those back up so everybody knew you were on Tulalip.
Yep.
And so it was always one of my goals to do that, you know, put that back out there. And so for me to be able to be a part of a resurgence of Coast Salish art, I believe that, you know, what we did here catapulted, you know, a lot of different tribes on putting Coast Salish artwork in their casinos and their hotels, because the platform that we had, the canvas that we had, we just put all of our culture out there for everyone to see, and I was part of that, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah. What's the future look like? What are you working on now?
The future's bright, future's positive, and just continuing to create, and you know, I have so many goals that I need to accomplish, and you know, I have a art show coming up in May at the Stonington Gallery, which I'm very, very proud of and excited for, and I'm creating this piece right here. That's going to be one of the pieces that will be displayed in the show, in my show, I should say.
Is this a work in progress then?
It's a work in progress. Also, I'll be bronze casting that. So, so there'll be a version in metal as well.
What advice do you have for our youth?
Be happy. Be proud of who you are. Learn, learn from your elders. Listen to your elders. Dive into your culture. And dive so deep that you practice it, you think of it, you live it. It's up to you. You know, I used to be youth, and it was up to me, you know. And you see what I'm doing. I'm doing my part.
Yep.
And I hope, you know, that the youth keeps this all going, and, you know, and we show everybody who we are at Tulalip, you know, and, you know, just be proud of it and own it.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. I appreciate your time, and I've had a lot of fun sitting with you.
Me too.
Thank you for sharing your life and career and your art with us.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Hibulb Conversations. I'm Mytyl Hernandez. Until next time.